I'm Matt Brennan. I'm Deputy Editor for Entertainment and Arts at the Los Angeles Times. Thank you so much for coming out to LA Times Talks at Sundance, presented by Chase Sapphire Reserve. As a huge fan of musicals, I'm really thrilled to be moderating today's conversation about Kiss of the Spider-Woman. So please join me in welcoming writer-director Bill Condon, cast member Jennifer Lopez, and cast member Tonatiuh. Thank you all so much for coming out.
The altitude.
Right?
That little sprint just now.
I myself dove into the Manuel Puig novel. I rewatched the original Hector Babenco film from the 1980s. I'm curious, Bill, about sort of your journey with Kiss of the Spider-Woman. What was your introduction to this story, and then how did it become sort of germinate into wanting to make a musical yourself?
It was in the same order. It was the novel for me first, then it was that movie in 1985, which you have to remember, groundbreaking movie. To have William Hurt playing a gay character, winning an Oscar for it. It was really, as a young gay man, it was a very, very influential movie. And then in 1993, seeing not once but several times the musical adaptation, which again, groundbreaking. You know, not only, again, the gay relationship, but also the brutality of the prison life, putting that into a musical, you know, something that only Kander and Ebb and Harold Prince, you know, would do. So it was all of that, right? But then I wrote the screenplay for Chicago, and it started immediately. I thought, God, this is even more deserving of being a movie because it exists in all the musical numbers exist in the world of movies. So I thought about that almost immediately, and then as it became more real, revisiting the novel, it was also a revelation. I'm sure you felt the same way. To read this novel that was written almost 50 years ago and see how the world has really taken its time but caught up to the attitudes that are in the novel that actually weren't reflected in those previous versions because they couldn't be, because the world wasn't there yet. So those two things became my impetus for revisiting it.
Jennifer, I looked over your filmography, and I think I'm correct that this is your first sort of traditional Hollywood musical.
Yes.
Had you been approached at any time before to do one?
No. I mean, I did Selena years ago, but I did not. It was not my voice. They wanted to use her voice. I did dance a little, but there wasn't much choreography. So this was my first musical. Yeah.
Why was this the right project for you to make that
Oh my
leap?
God! I'm gonna cut you off. I'm so excited to talk about this movie. You know, I didn't have the same kind of introduction to Kiss of the Spider-Woman. I never saw it on Broadway. I never read the novel. I never saw the first movie. My first introduction to it was a script that was sent to me, written by Bill Condon, and I was like, oh my God. I remember sitting in bed and reading it and going, oh my God, is this real? And I remember calling my agent back and I was going, this is mine. They want me to do this, right? And he was like, yes. I never felt in my life that a part was, like I was born to play a part, ever. I always felt like, okay, I can play this part. And I really felt that with this. And I was so moved by the story between Valentin and Molina in it. And I just felt it was so relevant today for this generation. Like he said, they've kind of caught up. They can see this, but there's also so much kind of adversity in that in the community that it was important to show that love is just love and people are just people. And for me, that resonated very deeply because of my own life and my own children. And so I really kind of took to it so immediately and was so excited. And then the music. And then the songs by Condon and Ebb and being able to sing those songs and be trusted with those songs and to do those musical numbers was a dream come true.
Tonatiuh, you sent in a self-tape as part of like an international search for the part of Melina. So what did the tape consist of? Like, what was it that you wanted to show about yourself that was like, I'm Melina?
Yeah, I was familiar with the IP. I did read the play in college, and I heard the music, but I wasn't. Well, as soon as I got the email and I read the script, something spiritual almost clicked, and I was like, I know this person, and I submitted my first tape. It was the She's a Woman song, and there's so many ways of doing a musical, right? That you can do camp and you can do more serious, but my first take, it was good, but I was just so dissatisfied with it, and so I locked myself up in my office, and then I just kept going over it and over it and over it and over it until I found the through line. And I think so much of my own identity had been stamped out of me, trying to mold myself into who I thought would be sellable in Hollywood as like a queer person, and Melina and like working with that material, I rediscovered so much of my own femininity and so much of my two-spiritness, and almost was able to forgive myself and re-embody those things. And so I sent it in, and lo and behold, it just kept happening and happening and happening. And there was a moment where they did choose to go a different way, and I remember just like spiritually, I was like, man, I just felt so grateful to have even touched the material, to have even been seen by this incredible team. And I prayed and I said, I wish that this project does well, and I wish that whatever's meant to be is meant to be. And the next morning, I got an email from Bill Condon saying, I would love for you to come back in. And I was like, is this real? Is this real life? And so I did a table read with Diego, and he was phenomenal and so generous. And then like a few days later, Bill called and said, you got it. And my response was, is this a lie? And he goes, why would I?
You got it, and you start tomorrow, right?
Yeah, basically. And I was just like, is this a lie? And he goes, no. And I was like, why would I lie something about that? And I was like, I don't know, but if you were lying, this would be really mean. Like, I don't. And he's like, are you happy? And I'm like, yeah, I gotta go. I'll see you later. And he was just, I'm sure he was just like, what's going on? But yeah, it felt a kismet. I don't know.
You mentioned Diego Luna, who plays Valentine, a political prisoner who Melina bonds with, and they eventually sort of fall in love. Since Diego couldn't join us, Bill, I would love to hear from you about what you saw in him that said Valentine to you.
Sure, and he sends his love. He had a family emergency that kept him in Madrid, but he's heartbroken not to be here. The thing is, Valentine, he is, he started as a student revolutionary, right? So he has these amazing humanist values. He is, in a weird way, what I love about the novel is that Melina is right wing. He's the queer character, but he's completely conservative in his outlook on so many things. And it was Diego's intelligence, sensitivity, the fact that he's a great actor. And it was really very obvious once we started working how committed he was to the idea that was kind of new in this version, that we were going to tell it as a love story. So he, from the first scene, is layering in things that allow the audience to believe that this character takes a journey toward love.
Now to my favorite part. I want to talk about the musical. So first of all, if you've read the novel, you know that there are in the novel, Melina narrates a bunch of different movies to Valentine to pass the time. In the 1985 movie, it's one movie within a movie, but it's a Nazi propaganda film. How did you come up with the idea of it being a classic Hollywood musical that would sort of like translate through the film? And then how did you go about like writing a musical within another film?
Right. Well, I think I start with my love of those musicals, and for me, even the greatest musicals of those periods, you still suddenly come to the scene where Jules Munchin is doing an 8-minute comedy bit with spinning salad, and you're like, it's torture. There are always things in the. So I felt like this is an opportunity to give you the 45 minutes of the movie that you love and skip over the other parts. That was the beginning. But more than that, yeah, it was a chance to take that score, which had been written in a very different way theatrically. In the theater, people are in a jail cell and they sing. Melina sings, dressing them up. That explains traditional musical theater storytelling. But in a movie, I thought it was important to really put that into a different world, the world of the Hollywood movie, and also Melina's imagination sometime, right? Or drug-induced imagination in one scene. So it was then taking that score and frankly building a story around the songs that we had and then exhuming a few from earlier versions. But that, for me, was the fun, creating a new movie that would also reflect on what was happening between these two men in the cell.
Jennifer and Tonatiuh, I needed to ask you about the training regimen. Bill made you work in this movie. So talk me through how you prep for the level of dancing, especially Jennifer, you really proved the old saying about Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, that Ginger did it backwards and in heels. You do it backwards and in heels. So how'd you get ready? What was the training and the rehearsals like?
It's funny. I would have liked to have had a whole year to do a big musical like this, but we didn't have that luxury. This is an independent film, and so we had, everything was crunched. We didn't have much time. I started months ahead once I knew that I was doing the movie, doing the songs on my own, starting to dance in that style again, which I hadn't done for years, and it just was weeks and months of doing that before. I think I knew that I was doing the movie in December. In January, the minute the holidays were over, January 1st, I started with the voice, and then from there, started with the dance, and then we started filming in March.
Yep.
In March. So I had a couple months, but our proper rehearsals and learning the actual choreography was, weeks. And it was challenging. It really was. Even for me, who was a dancer, but for Diego and Tona, it was very challenging. But we did it and we pulled it through, and it was kind of a lot of you can do this. We're gonna do this. This is gonna be fine. Don't be scared.
But can I tell the example? This
Yes.
is day 3. We're shooting, and we're already a little behind at lunch, right? So we go to Jennifer and say, the next part, we're going to do it all in one shot, right? And what do you think? She said, sure. It was great. Only
Can't
Jennifer
let 'em
would
see
be able
that
to
I'm
say that.
quaking in my boots.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no. But that kind of stuff happened all the time. It was
But
crazy.
you were also very upfront about the fact that you wanted to do it like a traditional musical from the 40s and 50s, where they would do the whole number in one shot, sing it and dance it all the way through. And he's like, one of the reasons I wanted you is because I know you can do that. And I was like, what? There's 10 numbers in the movie that we're gonna do in 3 weeks, okay? And he was like, I think you can do it. I was like, okay, well then, how can I let him down? So we couldn't do that part. But it was a lot of fun, and it was very tiring, but exhilarating as well to be able to do that. And it was a challenge, for me, to do a number like Give Me Love from top to bottom.
Incredible number.
Where they're throwing me off the bar and I'm jumping and I'm, doing all these crazy things, but it was fun. And really happy that you pushed that, because I was like, maybe you should get another camera angle on this. So we can edit. He was like, nope, this is what we're doing. I was like, okay.
I have to say though, to give you it was watching a mastery of work to see you perform. Every single time. There were even times where I wasn't even in the number and I would show up to set just to be like, oh my God, she's doing it again. This is incredible. And mind you, we literally were shooting a number a day. It was we would go in, we would shoot the number, and then the set would be gone the next day, and we would go off to the next one. You are a force of nature, truly. Well, in preparation, I danced. I was a part of a repertory dance company in college, but I haven't touched that because my forte was acting. That's all I ever focused on. But as soon as we got it, as soon as I got that call, I was like, oh, this person's in prison, and I just gained a bunch of mass to do Carry On. I have to lose 40 pounds. The diet starts yesterday, And then when we got there, Sergio and the rest of the dance crew really put me in boot camp. I mean, it was just retraining, watching, being very mindful of the diet, having some ballet training, and I mean, obviously we know each other well now, but at the time I just was like, oh my God, I'm gonna be dancing with Jennifer Lopez. If I step on her toe, if I drop her, I can't mess this up. So any second that I had, I think at one point the rehearsal hall was like so packed with dancers, these incredible incredible Broadway dancers. They were just so packed, and I was like, I don't want to dance in front of them. I'm gonna embarrass myself. So I went to the parking lot and just danced in front of like the car reflection, just to get it right. Like I was just so thrilled to be there.
One of the most striking changes for me, having read the novel and watched the original, is the depiction of the intimacy between Valentine and Melina. Even in the novel, it's sort of off-screen, as it were, and here it's not. So I'm wondering first, Bill, if you could talk about why it was important for you to sort of show it for what it is, and then Tonatiuh, could you talk about sort of how you and Diego built the trust? Because there are some pretty vulnerable moments that you have in the film.
Well, it's interesting because you're right. And the first time they make love, it's very discreet. It's and that's the way it has been presented before. The candle gets blown out and that's it. And we do a version of that here. But in the novel, actually, if you look at that part, then they are there for several weeks, and it's not a one-off thing. And I kind of wanted to play with, for the people who knew those versions, the expectation that we would just be discreet and stay at a distance, and then do it again for real, during the Kiss of the Spider Woman number. So I was kind of a little, kind of riffing on it.
Yeah, for us, what I loved about the script was that the love wasn't it wasn't a transactional thing. It was truly two people seeing each other for who they were and loving each other in that way. I got to work with Diego and I get to know him, and if you ever meet him, he's incredibly charming. I mean, that man, he walks into a room and you're just like, yeah, I get it. I get it. But during the musical part, we shot 2 movies, right? And so in the musical portion, he and I had a contentious relationship, our characters. But in this portion, Bill's gift to us was we shot it in order. So when I walked into the cell, that was my first time really meeting Valentine. And so the process of shooting it was how we built it. The nervous energy, the confusion, that do I like you, do I not like you, that was because we were still getting to know one another in that way as actors or as characters. But then the more traumatic things that happened to us in that order almost created a sense of like, I need you and I can't be separated from you. And so by the time that it was even in between takes, we would try to make each other laugh and we were just having a good time. But how do we build it? I think it built itself over the process of it. And you don't really get that gift in art most of the times. You usually shoot it out of sequence but no, I fell in love with Diego. I mean, it was just, it was like the Stanford prison experiment gone right.
So the film within a film is called Kiss of the Spider Woman. Its main character is Aurora, played by a fictional actress named Ingrid Luna, who's beloved by Melina. And I was just really, really struck by this line where Melina is describing Ingrid, and he says, no matter how hard Hollywood tried to make her seem all-American, she never stopped being Latin. Jennifer, given your stature in Hollywood, I immediately sort of thought, if you found resonance in that, if you ever felt pressure in your career to be a certain way, and how you stayed true to yourself.
I never felt like I had to be anything other than what I was. And I knew I was this, I kind of always toted that flag of like, I'm Jennifer Lopez. My last name's Lopez. I'm from the Bronx. I'm Puerto Rican. Like, that is who I am. And I'm proud of that. And I know that there was, when I started out, that there wasn't a lot of roles for me. I was playing the loudmouth Latin girl, or I was playing the maid, or I was playing this or that or whatever, right? The cashier who had the big mouth, like all things like that. Yeah, you know what I mean? And very caricaturish Latin characters. But I also knew that we existed in the world. And we existed, and I was the girl next door too. And I was the person who had hopes and dreams. And I was the person who was the cop. And I was the person who was the lead in my own movie. You know, and so I felt like that could happen. I believed that that could happen. I guess from my mom and my dad, you know, they really made me feel like I had a place in this world. And they had that dream for us because they were both born in Puerto Rico and they came here and, you know, to New York. And I just had that inside of me to say, you know, I'm gonna stay me, but I'm also gonna be these things, and I want to do these things, and I have these dreams. And so I love that line from the movie. I love it so much, and I think it was added afterwards.
Yeah, 6 a.m.
Which, yeah,
Wait,
it was
I need to
added
hear this
afterwards
story.
because it wasn't in the original script.
No,
And
it
I
wasn't.
remember when I heard it, I was like, oh. Me likey that. Yeah, I like
Hey, that's right.
Yeah, but because it really did. It wasn't even Ingrid Luna in the movie Kiss of the Spider Woman, playing Aurora and playing the Spider Woman. She wasn't trying to be Rita Hayworth or this or that. And even though they, you know, I have the blonde hair and all the things and was a little bit whitewashed, which I think is right for the period of that time. She still had that flair and that flavor. Like, you can't hide that part of yourself. Like, it always comes through. And I think it was a great ad.
So the kind of character's journey toward each other in the film is that Valentine starts off scoffing at musicals. He calls them retrograde and propaganda, kind of like opiate of the masses type stuff. And Melina starts off and says, I'm not political. I don't want to be mixed up in what you're mixed up in. And they sort of like cross wires along the way where at the end of the movie, Valentine is desperate to hear how Kiss of the Spider Woman ends. And Melina is now ready to become involved in the anti-authoritarian movement. I think that sort of question of like what is the right balance of politics and sort of art or escapism is so important to what you all do. I'm curious how you would plot yourselves on the Valentine to Melina spectrum. Like, are you toward taking the barricades, or are you more toward I'm gonna sort of persuade people kind of through the side door?
Sure. I got into acting because of politics. So I had a full ride to go to a couple of Ivy Leagues, and I chose to skip all that to my mom's dismay to become an actor. And my immigrant mom was like, "Really? Are you joking?" You know? But no, my ethos is like culture changes faster than policy. And if we can craft a vision for our culture, then policy will follow, right? And so I've had the good fortune of being attached to so many projects that are at the intersection of policy and entertainment. Vida was about gentrification of Boyle Heights. Promised Land was looking at an undocumented immigrant family who then becomes billionaires. And how do you lose your sense of identity in class over time as you gain access to power, right? And then even this, if we look at it, I mean, it's so riddled with it. And so for me, on the art side, yes, definitely let's sprinkle sugar to the medicine, right? But on the streets, baby, I'm throwing bricks. I'm an aggressive progressive. It's over. Like the Overton window has shifted so far to the right, playing these nice games. Enough is enough. Enough is enough.
I think for me, I was gonna say I'm a mix of like love and also storm the barricades, right? Say what you have to say. Don't be afraid to, be the person who's, talked about or, criticized, and then being in the public eye for so long, you kind of have to have a shield for that and understand who you really are and go to sleep at night and go, I know who I am. You know what I mean? And doesn't matter what people say. I know I'm living my life in the right way, and I know I'm living it from a place of love and acceptance and goodness and trying to put that message out into the world in whatever way I can all the time. And that is also a radical act. That is also something that, is kind of storming the barricades, is not letting us know, no matter how many bricks are thrown at you, you're still standing. Yeah. And I think that is, so I would say a mix for me. I don't know about you.
I think
it might just be storm the barricades.
No.
Also, fighting
not.
for something, like that's fighting for something is so strong,
Yes.
as opposed to fighting against something, because that could be fatiguing.
Yeah. No, for me, I saw myself in both characters. I think, and the thing, as you say, they merge. I think you need both, right? You need to live in the world of the imagination and things that are created, and to talk about these things through that. You look at what happened this week with the government announcing that there are only two genders, right? That's one thing that you respond to in real life, in a political way. But also, I think movies, when people have this intimate experience with characters or going through that, they do change minds, So that I thought was kind of the point of this whole thing, that you both escape and you are enriched by the experience of movies.
I'm sort of wondering, because the film is about a marginalized person and a political dissident being punished by an authoritarian regime. This story originated 40, 50 years ago, and it feels as relevant today as it did then. Bill, for you, as the person who sort of generated this project, what is the 2025 takeaway from Kiss of the Spider Woman that you feel like is sort of that we need right now?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because it was 1976, right? And it was so relevant there. And this novel means so much in that part of the world. It was amazing to work on this movie. And so many people on the crew, so many cast members had a relative or two or three who had been disappeared or who had been tortured by the. But the thing, you say it's still so relevant, not so much there. Uruguay, Argentina, these are, obviously it goes back and forth, but incredibly progressive values. There's been a huge sea change there too. But now here we are here. It's sort of moved here, I think in a way that's we're still grappling with. It's sort of how this happened and what's really going on, So I think that's the power of the film today, that something that is specific to that period also, sadly, is very, very current.
Jennifer and Tonatiuh, do you have a kind of feeling or thought or moral or lesson that you want viewers to walk away from this film with?
I think for me, the thing I love the most about it is that it was really purely about love and storytelling and how important those two things are. Storytelling in the fact that, they're in this prison and he's like telling him this, musical, and it's helping them survive just getting through the next 5 minutes, and, in this terrible situation, this unimaginable, circumstance that they're in, and how the power of love can overcome anything, any ideas that you have, if you're just open to that. And for me, is kind of someone who very much believes that that's, why we're here. And that's the biggest reason, is to love one another. That this movie, for me, really says that we can love, it doesn't matter who you are or how different you are or how far apart the divide is, that we can still find, if we just open ourselves to just seeing the human in front of us, we can love them, we can accept them. And that's what to me, this movie is about. And also the power of the escapism of storytelling. I think all of us here, including you, were deeply moved by musicals early in our lives, and how much that, like, for me, a little kind of girl in the Bronx where everything was like, as I say, like brown and brick and gray, to look at these musicals with my mother and, see them and go, there's a colorful world out there somewhere, and I want to go and get it and see it. And it helped me to dream and to understand that there was something more beautiful than the existence that I was living, even though I had a very nice upbringing with my mom and my dad and my family, but that there was something bigger out there and more beautiful, and that helped me to, kind of cultivate my dreams. And so the power of love and storytelling for me is at the basis of this film.
I love your mom, by the way. She's the sweetest human being on the planet.
She's amazing and crazy. I love my mommy. I love you.
Both of our moms'
I
names.
love you. I adore you. If it wasn't for you, I would not be here because she's the one who showed me every single musical I have ever seen.
You know, both of our moms' name is Lupita, and so I was like, so it was a love letter to Lupita's. No, for me, the biggest takeaway that I would love audiences to have is it's a love letter to queer people. It is, and I think that the gift that I was given was the ability to allow my spirit to be the spectrum, right? From playing Kendall to Molina's most final, beautiful version of themselves. And I think that Molina lives in a world, in their own prison at the beginning of their story, right? And as they fell in love, they became the hero of their own story. And I want to encourage everybody who watches it to realize that you are the hero of your own story, and you get to decide how you present at any point, at any time. It's all available to you, you know, and you're not alone. And I know that the next 4 years are going to be very difficult for our community. And it just makes me really happy to know that something like this can be a safe space for you, because we love you.
Thank you. Jennifer, you talking about your love of musicals as a kid, you're right, I share that. Bill, you've made a couple all-timers yourself. But it feels to me like the death of the movie musical is oft pronounced, and then it's resurrected just as often. I mean, right now we have Emilio Perez, Wicked, and this film within the last 12 months. I'm curious why you think people are always eager to push it into the grave, and why you think it's so resilient.
Yeah, I know. It was first pronounced dead in 1930 because the jazz singer, you know, was such a hit that they made like 100 musicals, and then people were like, I never want to see another musical, you know. And then Busby Berkeley came along and reinvented it, you know, a year later, you know. So this has been the progression of musical movies. I think I know why they keep coming back, because it is, and especially now when we look for reasons to go to the theater, it's a communal experience, you know, and there's a lift to it. There's something, like joy, right? But we've screened this movie, and just the people partake in it, you know,
They
and
do.
right, as though you were there,
It's
right?
always that thing of like guys are like, or people are just like, you know, oh, people don't sing in real life.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, well, maybe they should.
Times.
Maybe they should sing and dance in real life.
That's right.
It would be
Yeah.
a much
It
happier,
would. It
better
would.
place.
Yeah.
I'll do it. I'll start it right now.
go.
I'll go out in
Dig
that
it.
snow, start
go.
singing and dancing.
Catch us outside.
You heard it here
it's
first,
good.
folks. Jennifer Lopez leading the Kiss of a Spider Woman sing-alongs in theaters.
Yes.
I actually I wanted to talk because we're at Sundance and because this is an independent film. Jennifer, you were nominated for an Indie Spirit Award for one of your breakout roles in Mi Familia. So you have been in touch with indie cinema from really the beginning of your career as an actor, but you've also made a lot of really huge Hollywood studio projects. What does independent filmmaking do for you as a creator and maybe even as a viewer that you maybe don't necessarily get from the sort of big Hollywood projects?
It's true artistry, right? Like at the end of the day, you're doing an independent film, not because they're paying you, but because you love it.
Yeah.
It's something you have to do and you have to say, and you will do anything to make that happen. For whatever reason of why you connect with something and it's a story you have to tell or you feel like it's something that needs to be said, but it's just it's artistry in its purest form as far as movie making goes. And I think the big studio films are always fun. You know what I mean? And you know, there's better craft service and there's things like that. And there's time to do things, to rehearse. And but this is like, we're gonna do this no matter what. We're gonna get this done no matter what. And there's something about that everybody kind of pulls together and everybody knows why they're there. There's no question. The question is, we love this and we're doing this together. And that I get only when we do independent films. And movies are like that too. I'm not gonna take that away because people are always sign on to projects that they love to do and they wanna do. But there's something different when they're not paying you. You know why you're doing it. You do it because you love it. And there's a question on the commercial films. Is this a money gig for this actor? Like you're wondering, like, is he phoning it in right now? Am I the only one really showing up here? You know, it's different. But all jokes aside, they're labors of love, of true love and creativity and artistry. And, you know, we all get into this because, you know, you love to sing, dance, act, you love to perform, you love to make, you know, you love to write. That's why you get into it, because you just love it.
I have to let you all go, but before you do, a quick lightning round. It's not, let's say it's not prison. You're stranded on a deserted island with one other person. What is the movie that you could recite from memory to pass the time?
Funny Girl.
Titanic.
Sweet Charity.
Thank you all so much for
Thank
coming out.
you.